I love the book club. It's the only clubbing I do anymore.
All right, I think that's the perfect intro for Michelle. Welcome everyone to the Monday Night Book Club. Michelle's emphasizing the club part call. Tonight we're discussing chapter 10 of Atomic Habits, talking about how to fix the causes of your bad habits. As always, feel free to jump in with any thoughts, questions, comments, connections, or anything else at all. You could also put any of that into the chat. And I kind of always like to open it up before we start the current chapter. Did anyone have any follow-up thoughts from last week, the role of family and friends? Maybe something you try to implement or anything of that nature? All right, I'm gonna take that as a no. So this chapter, it's pretty short. The author James Clear, he usually starts the chapter with like an anecdote or a story. I get to kind of introduce the chapter. In the beginning of chapter 10, he's talking about a friend of his who quit smoking, and he was curious and he asked him about the why. And his friend told him about a book that he read. I don't have the name of the book, but it's in there. A book that he read, and how it helped him quit smoking. And James Clear read the book, and he realized that the book focused on the second law, the inverse of the second law, which is, to make it unattractive. And that's what the book was doing. It was making smoking unattractive. And, there are a couple of key points that he says, like, the book says, quote, "You think you are quitting smoking, but you're not quitting anything because cigarettes do nothing for you." So that's obviously making that unattractive, that reason of why you're smoking. It also says, "You think smoking is something you need to do to be social, but it's not. You can be social without smoking at all." And then the third point was, "You think smoking is about relieving stress, but it's not. Smoking does not relieve your nerves. It destroys them." So he kind of uses that to emphasize the point of how we can make habits that we don't want unattractive. And then the rest of this chapter is about where cravings come from and how to reprogram your brain. I don't know. Has anyone ever like quit something that wasn't good for you, and and maybe used any of this, Dana?
Actually, yeah, I quit smoking, and part of it was that I was talking to my husband on the phone, and after a while, you kind of realize that smoking it's not the smoking that you're actually enjoying, but it's actually the reaction that your body has to that poison. And, it became, just like he said, it became less attractive once you realize that. Because a lot of people will tell you that, hey, cigarettes control you, and it kind of sounds vain. But when you really stop and think and you actually understand the mechanism in your brain, it kind of opens up a door somehow.
Okay, so understanding that is important, because obviously there's a physical reaction, right, to the nicotine and other chemicals in there. But I think kind of like what he's getting to, and what this chapter is going to touch on, is like understanding. It's kind of implied, but like understanding there are things underneath that are creating that craving. And so if we can think about the cue that's creating that craving and what it is, what that is, then it probably makes it easier to quit those. All right, the next section, and this chapter is so short, it might be just better if I just kind of read through here, and if anything kind of stands out to y'all, or if you've done any annotations and we come across something that you noted, just feel free to jump in and stop me at any time. All right, the next subsection is where cravings come from. Every behavior has a surface level craving and a deeper underlying motive. I often have a craving that goes something like this. I want to eat tacos. If you were to ask me why I want to eat tacos, I wouldn't say because I need food to survive. But the truth is, somewhere deep down, I am motivated to eat tacos because I have to eat to survive. The underlying motive is to obtain food and water, even if my specific cravings is for a taco. Some of the underlying motives include, here you kind of list out some of the big, deeper level cravings that are kind of like ingrained within us. And it makes me think back to a chapter or two back where they were talking about the birds and how they're pre-wired from birth to do certain actions. So some of those motives may include to conserve energy. I don't know, maybe that's lazy habits, to obtain food and water, to find love and to reproduce, to connect and bond with others, to win social acceptance and approval, to reduce uncertainty, and to achieve status and prestige. So those are kind of like some of the possible underlying motives behind these habits that we create. A craving is just a specific manifestation of a deeper underlying motive. So, and I kind of highlighted that, like, so that's what a craving is. It's specific, but it's tying to one of these deeper underlying motives. So maybe anytime we're craving something, and like I know phones is a big one. Like, what is it about that notification that's creating that when we get a notification, there's a craving to check it, but like, what is that about? It's probably, more than likely the social acceptance, the connection. Your brain did not evolve with a desire to smoke cigarettes or to check Instagram or to play video games. At a deep level, you simply want to reduce uncertainty and relieve anxiety, to win social acceptance and approval, or to achieve status. Look at nearly any product that is habit forming, and you'll see that it does not create a new motivation, but rather latches on to the underlying motivation of human nature. And I think that's important, like understanding that any of these things that we create habits, they're latching on to one of these underlying motives that we already have. Yeah, Carlin's talking about the dopamine that we talked about recently. Yep. So for example, if you're, find love and reproduce, maybe you're using Tinder. Connect and bond with others, you're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, others. Win social acceptance and approval. I mean, that's where people are flexing on Instagram, right? I mean, it's a lot of the times it's kind of stupid to be, if you think about it, as a reseller, to just be posting what you're selling for big money. I mean, what's about that? That's purely for acceptance and approval, I think. To reduce uncertainty, maybe you're Googling, maybe you're doing different things, smoking probably, right, if you're anxious. To achieve status and prestige, playing video games. Your habits are modern day solutions to ancient desires, new versions of old vices. The underlying motives behind human behavior remain the same. The specific habits we perform differ based on the period of history. And that's kind of interesting. Like, if you think throughout history, like these underlying motives are pretty much the same that we've always had. And these are some of the ways we're dealing with it now with our habits. But, how did people, 300 years ago, what were they doing to try to tap into these motives? Here's the powerful part. There are many different ways to address the same underlying motive. One person might learn to reduce stress by smoking a cigarette. Another person learns to ease their anxiety by going for a run. Your current habits are not necessarily the best way to solve the problems you face. They are just the method you learn to use. Once you associate a solution with a problem you need to solve, you keep coming back to it. Habits are all about associations. These associations determine whether we predict a habit to be worth repeating or not. As we covered in our discussion of the first law, your brain is continually absorbing information and noticing cues in the environment. Every time you perceive a cue, your brain runs a simulation and makes a prediction about what to do in the next moment. And here's some examples like cue. You notice that the stove is hot. Prediction, if I touch it, I'll get burned, so I should avoid touching it. Cue, you see the traffic light turns green. Prediction, if I step on the gas, I'll make it safely through the intersection and get closer to my destination, so I should step on the gas. And I would probably add, check the intersection first before you do that. How many people run red lights? You see a cue, categorize it based on past experience and determine the appropriate response. This all happens in an instant, but it plays a crucial role in your habits because every action is preceded by a prediction. And that kind of made me think about like sourcing, right? When you're deciding what to pick up, you know, that's based, you're making a prediction, and obviously we have solds, which, you know, you really don't have to make that prediction. But if you sold enough of certain items, you can then skip looking up the solds because that Rolodex, you can predict that it's going to sell again. Life feels reactive, but it is actually predictive. I mean, if you think about it, even just with our listing habit, right? Like I was thinking about that today. Like our listing habit is predictive, and we know if we increase it, we're predicting that we will sell more items in the future. All day long, you are making your best guess of how to act given what you have just seen and what has worked for you in the past. You are endlessly predicting what will happen in the next moment. Our behavior is heavily dependent on these predictions. Put it another way, our behavior is heavily dependent on how we interpret the events that happen to us, not necessarily the objective reality of the events themselves. Two people can look at the same cigarette and one feels the urge to smoke while the other is repulsed by the smell. And it also makes me think when we talk about niches, right? Some people will, you know, if we say shoes, some people are like, oh, I hate to sell shoes. Other people, man, I look at ROI, right? Or same thing for clothing or whatever your niche is. No two people necessarily are going to view it the same. The same cue can spark a good habit or a bad habit depending on your prediction. The cause of your habits is actually the prediction that precedes them. These predictions lead to feelings, which is how we typically describe a craving. A feeling, a desire, or an urge. So, you know, that's kind of like what the craving is. The craving is actually an emotional feeling. Feelings and emotions transform the cues we perceive and the predictions we make into a signal that we can apply. They help explain what we are currently sensing. For instance, whether or not you realize it, you are noticing how warm or cold you feel right now. If the temperature drops by 1 degree, you probably won't do anything. If the temperature drops 10 degrees, however, you'll feel cold and put on another layer of clothing. Feeling cold was the signal that prompted you to act. You have been sensing the cues the entire time, but it is only when you predict that you would be better off in a different state that you take action. A craving is the sense that something is missing. It is the desire to change your internal state. When the temperature falls, there is a gap between what your body is currently sensing and what it wants to be sensing. This gap between your current state and your desired state provides a reason to act. Desire is the difference between where you are now and where you want to be in the future. Even the tiniest action is tinged with the motivation to feel differently than you do in the moment. When you binge eat or light up or browse social media, what you really want is not a potato chip or a cigarette or a bunch of likes. What you really want is to feel different. Our feelings and emotions tell us whether to hold steady in our current state or to make a change. They help us decide the best course of action. Neurologists have discovered that when emotions and feelings are impaired, we actually lose the ability to make decisions. I found that part really interesting, that when emotions or feelings are impaired, we lose the ability to make decisions. We have no signal of what to pursue and what to avoid. As the neuroscientist Antonio Damasio explains, it is emotions that allow you to mark things as good, bad, or indifferent. To summarize, the specific cravings you feel and habits you perform are really an attempt to address your fundamental underlying motives. Whether a habit successfully addresses a motive, you develop a craving to do it again. In time, you learn to predict that checking social media will help you feel loved, or that watching YouTube will allow you to forget your fears. Habits are attractive when we associate them with positive feelings, and we can use this insight to our advantage rather than our detriment. All right, I've been reading a lot there. Anybody got any thoughts on that section? Like seeing, kind of like understanding these cravings, emotions, and all that? Heidi?
Yeah, so every day when I go to the post office, I go at the end of the day because I have 2-day shipping. So I always try to ship everything out the same day. So I figure it's okay if I wait till the end of the day. So I still struggle with getting my listings done during the day. And my first impulse, as soon as I'm done with the post office, is go run errands, go source, go to the grocery store, go do anything else but go home and photograph. And today I decided I wanted to come to the book club. I wanted to get my photographs done. We have more daylight out here in California. So I'm here now, but what was that, what was I avoiding? Why was I always making that decision to go do something other than work? I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, so I think that would be the question to try to figure out, like, what is it about photographing that you find unattractive?
Or just going back home again, and being stuck in the house all day after being there already. I think I'm stressed out because my parrots won't stop screaming.
So that would be the I guess the craving to change that, like that anxiety, or some people get out for social I mean, I guess there could be a lot of reasons why. But what if, and kind of going back to the one thing, I always tie those two books together, this one and the one thing. And the one thing he always says, what's the one thing you can do so that everything else is unnecessary or easier? And I think we've decided probably as a group that with reselling, it's listing, but even within the listing, different people may have different parts that they like or don't like. Do you think the listing, the photography, do you dread that more than the actual listing part?
I don't dread any of it. I just can't seem to get it done within the, the time that I have, which is all day. So I have like no excuse. I don't have a job. It's like, it's just frustrating.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of it within terms of this book. Like he would say, like, if that's something that you're struggling with, the law is you'd want to make it attractive. So how can you set up photography and or listing to make it more attractive? And then kind of what he's saying, like I was thinking about this, right? When we change our listing habit, usually we want it to go up. Like there's a feeling that we're having, like I think it's, for many of us, it would be, well, I want to make more sales and more money, which kind of goes to the why. Like I was talking to some reseller friends this weekend, and like different people have different models, and I think you've got to understand, like, what is your objective? Why are you doing what you're doing? What are you trying to get out of it? Because no two of us, probably even in this group, are exactly the same. Everybody has different goals and reasons and situations. I don't know. Has anybody got any thoughts? Maybe we can help Heidi out.
Yeah, Heidi, I'm thinking, I think we all have these things where we are not, less comfortable or not looking forward to. And it is very important, as far as I'm concerned, to pay attention to hate and all the negative stuff, because positive feelings teach you nothing. Negative feelings teach you everything. So whenever I find something that I'm not excited about doing or I dread doing, is when I step down and analyze the issue, because any friction that you feel or unpleasantness is your brain trying to tell you that something doesn't feel right. So based on those cues, I make improvements, and I usually turn the things that I hate the most into the things I love the most. And I will give you an example, for instance, with shoes, that a lot of people love the ROI on shoes, right? They love the photography because you basically sit down and you do a tabletop. So there's a lot of pluses to it. The reason why people do not like shoes at the end of the day is when you sell a pair of boots and they're all shaped odd or long, or they're not so standard like a shirt, like a pair of pants. All pair of pants fold the same, not so with shoes. So I used to get frustrated with that in the beginning. So then I was like, wait a minute, I'm uncomfortable shipping shoes, but I like selling them. Why am I uncomfortable? What is it about it that makes me feel uncomfortable? And then I realized that it was the fact that I had to be very much aware of the shape of each individual shoe. So there was not a standard procedure for doing the shipping. Once I was like, okay, what kind of types of shoes I'm selling? How do I ship them? How do I make it standardized so I don't think about it? I printed it out with pictures, hung it up, problem solved. So everything I hate is my biggest clue into how to improve.
Yeah, and I think I like the part just on a macro level of understanding why you hate something, or why you're avoiding doing something, like trying to figure that out. Like even Heidi is trying to figure that out. Like I think the first step is just to be aware of it. I think many of us aren't even aware of how these emotions and these cues and these cravings all work. And if you can figure out what's underneath that, that could probably shed some light and maybe help you, which is what this next section is going to talk about. The next section is how to reprogram your brain to enjoy hard habits, which is exactly what Dana was talking about. But before we get to that, does anybody else have any other thoughts on the first section we just read?
I mean, I've been there too with the, for me, the biggest discouragement for me has been friction. Sometimes I can be a bit disorganized when it comes to like the transition areas in my home. Like I'll put bins in the way and things like that. So it makes it so that I have to kind of maneuver around bins to get to my photo station, or maneuver around bins to get to the cleaning station, so on and so forth, right? And by that being the case, it makes it so that I don't want to go take photos because I don't want to trip over a bin on my way to take photos. It's going to really irritate me. So like my brain naturally goes, I don't want to take photos because I don't want to trip. So I have to like really motivate myself to do it, compared to if I was at Tech's place, I literally just show up. I don't trip over anything on the way to the photo station and I take photos. It's easy, right? So what I decided to do was I took not all of them, most of them, they're almost all gone. I took every single bin out of my house and moved them over to my storage unit, so that, because at first it was like I would move a month at a time and then leave the other months here. And that way I can pick from here while also being able to go over to the storage unit to pick the ones that are not sold recently. But I was like, forget that. What we're going to do from now on is after you finish taking photos, you're going to put them all in the bin. And the next morning when you go get the shoes, you're going to bring that bin over there too. So that there's no bins in the house. Because if there's bins in the house, there's clutter in the house. If there's clutter in the house, transition areas are clogged. If transition areas are clogged, you're going to get irritated when you're trying to do a task. So I think transition areas are so important, especially if they're messed up, to ensure that you're motivated to pull off the task. Or at least for me, that's how it is for me.
Yeah, I like that, Isaiah. Like there's two things I pulled from that. Like the first thing is like you created a new habit stack, or you change your habit stack from monthly to, I guess, daily, and that goes in a certain part of your day. And Chris talks a lot about big habit stacks. And once your whole day is just a habit stack, it takes a lot of we're not having to use brain power to think about, well, what am I going to do next? Kind of like what Heidi, you were talking about. I'm at the post office. If you just have a big habit stack and after the post office, you're going to do photography, and that's once it becomes a habit, then you don't really think about it. And I think the second thing, like what Isaiah's talking about, is and James Clear talked about this previously, and we talked about it, is how you can change your environment to, in this case, like Isaiah's case, is to make that habit easier to achieve. And like if you want to quit smoking, or if there's a habit you want to change, you can also adjust it to make that habit more difficult. So I think those are good examples.
I agree with that, because it's not like the goal is to take photos, right? Like I want to go take photos so I can do my listings. Well, the goal is to do the listings, but to do the listings, I have to clean the shoes. And after cleaning the shoes, I have to take the photos, and then I can do the listings. But the problem is, in order to take the photos, I have to take all the shoes from yesterday off the bench. And then I have to put all those shoes in a bin. And then I have to find out where I'm going to put that bin, because I have bins everywhere. So I have to go create a space for the bin. And then after creating all the space for the bin, after I just spent an hour cleaning all the shoes, and now I can finally go do photos. And while I'm on my way to do photos, I trip on a bin, hit my knee on the ground, and get irritated. And now I don't want to take photos anymore. So like the goal is to take photos, but there's so many roadblocks in front of it that you're just like, it's easy to not do it. All you have to do is hit your knee on a bin, and now you're like, I'm done. I'm not taking photos today. I'm gonna do something else. So
yeah, that's good. Yeah, I've actually tripped over a bin and actually fell on the concrete. Like that's with a bin, and you don't want to drop the bin. Like that's horrible. So I get not good. And I was just thinking, and this is kind of unrelated. Like I know for myself, I struggle with squirrel brain, or always wanting to change things up. And I know I'm not the only one. And I always like try to figure out the why. And where he was talking in this section we just read, that like where he was talking about impaired emotions makes it where you can't make decisions. I wonder, like with wanting to have squirrel brain, I don't know if it's a want, with having squirrel brain or indecisiveness, I wonder what the relationship to it with emotions, because there's obviously an emotion under there. Like when you're switching things up out of the blues, I mean, boredom or whatever that is, I think is causing that. So, you know, like with I like the way Dana looks at things, trying to figure out the why. And that's currently like a long-term thing, is like I want to figure out why I have the tendency when things are going well to want to switch it up. Like I'm obviously wanting to change some type of feeling or emotion, but what is that? Like, you know, not want to get too deep, but like, is it, you know, fear of failure or fear of success? I mean, it could be a lot of different things, but that's something I'm trying to figure out. And just reading that section, I was just thinking about that. I think the emotions and the decisions are clearly linked. So trying to understand what is the emotion behind it can maybe give you some clues. Dana?
Brian, I don't want to assume, obviously, anything, but what I've been noticing about you as being somebody who's highly intellectual, seems to me like you're always looking for a better solution. So what if your identity is linked to being intelligent, and therefore you interpret that as always finding the better way? So perhaps you're not squirrel brain because you're looking for novelty, but because you're like, oh, I figured this out. I can do this. I wonder what else I can do. So maybe you just like a challenge.
Yeah, that could very well be it, Dana. Like I know Chris and Tech on one of their podcasts mentioned something to the effect of, you know, like once you figure out one niche, and especially if you're the type of person that, you know, has I don't know how to explain. Like if you've got confidence, then you can figure, well, I can do the same thing in another niche. And I think my mindset is I'm always wanted to take it up a level, but I think maybe there's danger in that, where taking it up a level would be probably better by maxing out the niche you're in totally before you even considered another niche. But yeah, I don't know, Dana, but I think you may be onto something there, because I've kind of got this mindset of I want more, but there's also a restlessness there, and I don't exactly know what that is, but But thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Does that mean that like Tech is just like satisfied with doing clothes? Because like why when he was doing 30, 40, 50 a day, like why didn't he go from selling clothes to selling shoes or clothes to media or whatever, right? Like how, because I feel you completely, Dana and Brian, about the idea of like I see a different niche and I go, man, if I do this, this, and this, like I can make this much money compared to this amount of money that I'm making right now. And that sounds better. So like, how do you stick with it so securely? Yeah, that's it. Like, how do you stick with it? All the way up to the point where now you're doing 250 a day, 300 a day when, I don't know. I think
Yeah,
think I know.
I don't want to speak for Tech, and of course he can speak, but in the chat he put most scalable, most abundant, most ROI of any niche. So to me, that's very analytical, and it's just cut and dry. And I know Tech said that he doesn't care about clothes, so I think it's just what the biggest opportunity is.
Yep. Because I think that's when you get steady. It's kind of like a relationship with a partner. You're going to keep looking until you feel like you found the right one, the one that checks most of your boxes. And when you feel like you got something that you're certain that is the best fit for you.
Yeah. But then it's like what, like with the comparison, right? Of a partner. Well, what elements do they have that fit best with you that you're looking for? Or I think maybe not clothing, in reselling, like Tech just laid it out. It's just very, it seems very objective, not subjective. And yeah, I'm just reading the chat. Kim was asking Tech if he didn't start out with clothing. That's what you eventually landed on. He said yes. I mean, we know from his name TechNSports that, it was, y'all talked about on the last podcast where he, his first buy was a cell phone. And then Tech says, for example, shoes aren't most scalable. Too much time manually cleaning, harder to find than clothes, etc. Every niche, I saw something that was more difficult than clothing, whether it was sourcing, prep, listing, etc. Yeah, and for me, it's tough because here's the thing, I enjoy shoes more than clothes. In shoes, you can make a lot of money with. But for me, I ultimately came to basically what Tech is saying, that even though I don't enjoy clothes as much, they're so abundant and the cost of goods for me is so cheap. And that's another thing, like for me to scale shoes is going to cost way more. Like I don't currently have the cash flow to scale shoes the way I can clothes. So yeah, I did go back to clothing. Now, if I pick up shoes, I will pick up shoes if I'm outsourcing and I see them if they're really good ones. And I've decided to save that for the weekend, almost like a side project, and just list them on the weekend where it doesn't interfere. But to me, regardless of that, it's like, it's the why, like why I'm always switching. And to be honest, like with all the card talk, like I used, way back in the day, I used to collect cards and I like sports. So that's, and seeing how hot sports cards are, that's very intriguing to me. Like, and I'm not even gonna lie, part of that squirrel brain kicked in. I was like, sports cards. But I was like, no, if I do anything with sports cards, it'll be on the weekend. Like, I think for me, I have to set clear boundaries. Like it's nothing but clothes, and anything outside of clothes is basically a hobby, and I have to do that in my free time versus my work time. All right. Anybody else got any thoughts on that first section? I guess we can go ahead into the next part.
I was going to say something to add on to what you're talking about. There's a blogger I follow, and she said that people ask her, like, oh, do you get bored of talking about the same topic over and over and over again? She said, yeah, I do get bored, but I have a rule. I don't break my business. And what she was referring to was her main program that she sells that makes her, 98% of her money. So she said she can go off on all these like little projects, but she doesn't break her program that makes her millions of dollars. And so I kind of see that with reselling, where it's like, you know, you can have your main like income, and then if you want to like learn about other niches or something on the side, then you can do that. But like, well, first of all, you're going to confuse eBay, but you know, if you want to do that, you can have like another store that you know, fiddle around with hard goods if you're a clothing seller or whatever you want to do, but you don't break your main business, because then you don't really have the time or the money to fiddle with side niches.
Yeah, I think that's a good example. Thanks for sharing that, Carla. All right. The next section is how to reprogram your brain to enjoy hard habits. Kind of exactly what Dana was talking about. You can make hard habits more attractive if you can learn to associate them with a positive experience. Sometimes all you need is a slight mindset shift. For instance, we often talk about everything we have to do in a given day. You have to wake up early for work. You have to make another sales call for your business. You have to cook dinner for your family. You know, you have to get your listings up. Now imagine changing just one word. You don't have to, you get to. You get to wake up early for work. You get to make another sales call for your business. You get to cook dinner for your family. By simply changing one word, you shift the way you view each event. You transition from seeing these behaviors as burdens and turn them into opportunities. And like when I read that, I just made a little annotation like gratitude. Like gratitude is very powerful. If you, it's like a good habit, like whether it's a gratitude journal or, you know, maybe you just talk to your family at the dinner table and something you're grateful for that day. It's just a mind shift change, because I think if you think about like even on eBay, YouTube and all the other groups, they focus on the negative, which is the small percentage where, you know, we should be focusing. I'm grateful that I can sell on eBay. Like if we lost our eBay account, I mean, we would be devastated, but are we actually grateful that we have it? And you can even tie that into your listing, right? And Tech has said this, like if you found out that you can only list for X amount more time on eBay, you'd be listing your butt off. So maybe we can have this get to, or this grateful mentality, if we can figure that out. And I think that's a habit. Like I know mindsets, like we know some people that they're just always negative, right? And some people are very positive. So if we can reprogram the way we look at things, I think this getting to grateful are really important. Let's see. Bo says your life follows your thoughts. How you see the world is the world you see. I like that. That'd be a good sticker for Sticker Joe. Tom says better to have to do than be unable to do. It's the same thing. Like I always think about, like I think tomorrow I'm going to start a running routine. Like I want to get my physical health going, and like my first thought was like, man, it's going to be hard. But then I was think of this. I'm like, if I didn't have any legs, or if I couldn't run, man, there would be nothing more enjoyable than being able to run. Like I was thinking about this. I was talking to an old friend from high school that I haven't seen in a long time, that we used to play basketball together. And we were talking about all those times of playing basketball and how much fun we had. And, you know, I can't physically play basketball like I could when I was younger. And I really miss that. So I don't know. I think our mindset is really important. And Bo threw another quote, Proverbs 23:7, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Nice. I like that. All right. Where were we? Oh yeah, we're talking about get to. The key points is that both versions of reality are true. You have to do those things, and you also get to do them. We can find evidence for whatever mindset we choose. I once heard a story about a man who uses a wheelchair. When asked if it was difficult being confined, he responded, "I'm not confined to the wheelchair. I am liberated by it. If it wasn't for my wheelchair, I would be bedbound and never able to leave my house." This shift in perspective completely transformed how he lived each day. Reframing your habits to highlight their benefits rather than their drawbacks is a fast and lightweight way to reprogram your mind and make a habit seem more attractive. And here he's going to give some examples. So for exercise, many people associate exercise with being a challenging task that drains energy and wears you down. You can just as easily view it as a way to develop skills and build you up. Instead of telling yourself, I need to go run in the morning, say it's time to build endurance and get fast. Finance. Saving money is often associated with sacrifice. However, you can associate it with freedom rather than limitation if you realize one simple truth. Living below your current means increases your future means. The money you save this month increases your purchasing power next month, which that kind of made me think back to what was it, E-Myth Revisited. All right, is that the one, Carlin, that you did? Was it E-Myth Revisited?
Profit first.
Profit first. Okay, I knew that didn't sound right. All right, yeah, profit first. I'm sorry. All these kind of blend together after a while. Which kind of one of the key takeaways for me from Profit First was the idea of lean. And I even noticed as I'm finishing up my taxes for the year, like I had a lot in gross sales for me, but I also had way more expenses. And then I was looking at that, I'm like, all right, there's definitely a lot of areas I need to run a leaner business this year. And that's one of my goals, is to run as lean as I can. Meditation. Anyone who has tried meditation for more than 3 seconds knows how frustrating it can be when the next distraction inevitably pops into your mind. You can transform frustration into delight when you realize that interruption gives you a chance to practice returning to your breath. Distraction is a good thing because you need distraction to practice meditation. So maybe that's the key. If we get distracted, we need a better meditation habit. Pre-game jitters. Many people feel anxious before delivering a big presentation or competing in an important event. They experience quicker breathing, a faster heart rate, heightened arousal. If we interpret these feelings negatively, then we feel threatened and tense up. If we interpret these feelings positively, then we can respond with fluidity and grace. You can reframe, I am nervous, to, quote, I am excited and I'm getting an adrenaline rush to help me concentrate. These little mindset shifts aren't magic, but they can help change the feelings associated with a particular habit or situation. So to me, like, this is the part, like that sentence kind of tied the previous section, going back to emotions and feelings. So by changing the mindset, we can change the feelings that we have, which then will make it easier, I think, to create that habit, the habit we're trying to create. If you want to take a step further, you can create a motivation ritual. You simply practice associating your habits with something you enjoy. Then you can use that cue whenever you need a bit of motivation. For instance, if you always play the same song before having sex, then you'll begin to link the music with the act. Whenever you want to get in the mood, just press play. Ed Lattimore, a boxer and writer from Pittsburgh, benefited from a similar strategy without knowing it. Odd realization, he wrote. My focus and concentration goes up just by putting my headphones on while writing. I don't even have to play any music. Without realizing it, he was conditioning himself. In the beginning, he put his headphones on, played some music he enjoyed, and did focused work. After doing it 5, 10, 20 times, putting his headphones on became a cue that he automatically associated with increased focus. The cravings follow naturally. And like when I read this, or reading this, Heidi, it makes me think about like how you're trying to create that habit of photography. So I wonder if you could use this part, like if you could find something like certain music or some type of ritual that you can do that will then become associated with the photography, and then that's a way almost
I kind of have started doing that. It's like I get kind of insecure in the group, so I don't really usually want to talk, but I like to show myself doing the photos and with the sound off, and it gives me a sense of it's like having a job and reporting to work, so it makes me feel productive. So the motivation to come back and turn the camera on, even if I don't talk, just to get some, more work clock time done, I think. But
Well,
you're right. If I could,
it sounds like
you know,
that's your accountability in a way, right?
I don't know if I really am accountable at all as a personality type. So I don't know if I want to go there, but
Mhm.
I think I just want to get the sense of having a job of sorts, doing something productive.
So more structure, maybe.
Yeah.
What about if you scheduled an appointment, like a gym or something, like for like 11 o'clock, and then you got everything done in the morning?
Okay.
It was like
Well,
a
because you
reward.
said
Or,
you weren't doing anything all day, so
No, I'm
Like-
I'm trying to do my listings all day, but it just doesn't.
but that's what I'm saying is that if you have a hard stop where, like, say, okay, I have to have lunch at 12 because I have an appointment at 1 o'clock, that's the reason. Because I'm the same way. Like, I'm on disability and I don't have to do anything at any time unless it's shipping. And hey, get down. My kitten's climbing the wall.
Right. Right. It's all those distractions, the pets, the phone calls from relatives, the needy friends, right? The
Well,
urge to go on YouTube, the destructive habit
that's
of
a
turning
whole-
on the
that's a whole other
news.
thing,
I just
but,
get
like,
so distracted.
if you the days that, like, I have an appointment, like, I can get my work done so fast because I'm like, I don't want to go to my appointment and be tired and come home and then, like, still have to do my listing. So I think, yeah. And also, like, working from home sucks.
Yeah.
Like, if you have pets and you have other people but like, seriously, put your phone on airplane mode and just, like, put your headphones on and just get it done. Because I struggle with photos too. Like, it's my least favorite part. I would list on eBay all day long if I had someone to do my photos, but I don't right now. So, like, it's just one of those things where you have to, like, prep and then either prep the night before. Because I know for me, like, going back to what Isaiah was saying, I got a storage unit. I got rid of all my clutter in my office. But I realized what was holding me back was my items weren't prepped. So there were a lot of items like, oh, I want to steam this, or like, oh, I want to, like, I didn't have things hanging, and then some stuff needed to be steamed, some stuff needed to be sticky brush, some stuff needed to be, and then I would, like, get photographing in my light tent, and then I would realize, like, oh, this thing has a flaw, and then I have to, like, throw it to the side, and, like, so if you have a rack and you prep everything the night before, like, that's a habit I'm gonna try to really get into, because that honestly takes away like 98% of the friction.
Yeah.
Because you're like, okay, I already know everything's ready to go, and you just bang, 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 bang. It shouldn't take more than, like, I think Chris said, like, 2 minutes an item at the most. Like, if you're trying to do like 30 a day, that's really should only take you like 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah. No, I'm before I joined the group, I did everything. So it was even worse because I had exactly that same problem. I didn't know what to list. I had no idea when I went to bed the night before what I was going to list the next day. And so I had all these different choices, and I would, it's just, at least with clothes, I have a stack. And you're right. Now that I prep, this stuff has been washed. That was a good habit too. And when you don't wash stuff, because you thought it was great until you started taking pictures. I just did that with a Peter Millar shirt that I thought was perfect until I looked closer.
And I stopped picking up a lot of the stuff that was creating death piles for me, like stuff with sequins that had to be hand washed, a lot of shoes. I only pick up shoes now that don't need really any cleaning, or if they just need like a quick wipe down. I don't pick up certain types of shoes because I know I won't clean them at all. I know that if I pick up something new at tags, I have to get it steamed immediately. Or I will just cut the tag off and I will just list as new without tags, wash, never worn, put that in the description. And if someone doesn't want to buy it because it doesn't have the tag, oh well. But I doesn't really, I seem like things take a bit longer, but it's not like a deterrent. So yeah, I mean, you have to have systems in place. And then once you realize kind of what's going to work for you, because Like, I don't pick up hats anymore. I don't pick up belts really, like, at all, because I like just all these little things that just create piles. And then you're like, where do I even start? And then for me, like, if I don't know where to start and there's clutter, I walk out. I walk away. Like, I'm just like, I will just like, my brain can't handle it. So yeah, prepping is like, I feel like it's something that we don't talk enough about.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, Heidi, I think when you got so many things, it's almost like, you know, focus on one thing at a time, just slowly. Like I think it takes a while to really get your processes and get your habits, get all this created, you know, just and and the one thing they talk about habit formation, and the average is 66 days, depending on how complex it is. So like if you, and that's a really good podcast too. The One Thing, if you're looking for a good podcast, if you like the book, The One Thing.
Is that Gary Keller?
Yeah, Gary Keller. Yeah. But, and they will even recommend, they have a 66-day habit calendar that's free that you can print out on their, if you just Google it, you can find it. So whenever you're trying to create a new habit, just focus on that one habit, because we only have so much mental brain juice, brain power, and all these decisions that, like Carlin was talking about, and like what you were mentioning, like that overwhelms us, and a lot of people will just shut down. And so if you just pick one thing to work on, get that one, and then you got to try to figure out, like what he would say is like, what's the one thing creating the most friction, or what's the one thing holding you back right now the most, and then try to figure out a habit that you can implement. And then also think about all the things we're talking about here, like, you know, how to make it attractive or unattractive, et cetera, your environment, all these factors. Like you were talking about your bird, like what, you know, there's so many things you could think about, but pick that one thing you want to work on. And then after you've got that habit down, which on average is a little bit over 2 months, it doesn't take much energy to keep that habit going. Then you can then pick your next one. And if you do that over the course of the year, you'll add 5 or 6 habits that can be really transformative to your life. And if you do that for several years in a row, before you know it, like you're just killing it. So
Cool. Thank you.
yeah, I don't know. There's a lot there. Let's catch up on the chat. Let's see. Aaron said practicing delayed gratification could benefit us long term. Yeah, I like that idea of delayed gratification. Like we don't have to have it instantly, which is where these goes. And that's something I did recently. Like one of my big long-term whys is I want a house. I want like a cabin in the mountains as a second home. And I know eBay could allow me to have that. So I've printed out a picture that I have posted just to kind of look at to remind me. But that's delayed gratification. Delayed gratification. That's not going to happen this year. But I know maybe in a few years, if I stick with all these things we're talking about, I can get there. So I love that where Aaron's talking about delayed gratification versus our society culturally. Like I used to teach the novel Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. It was written in 1952. And this is when TVs were first barely coming out. And if you've read that novel, it's scary what he writes. It's science fiction, but like that story is almost like a prediction. It kind of like the gist of it is that it's set in the future where it's illegal to read. And if you're caught reading, you'll be arrested and your house or wherever your books are will be burned. And kind of how they, in that society, like they live in rooms where 3 or 4 walls are covered with like giant, like the walls are TVs, and it's immersive, and there's artificial intelligence, and everything is really superficial. There's no depth, there's no thoughts. And the kids are driving fast, super fast, running over people if they're crossing the road, and just it kind of seems out there at first, but when you think about it, when he wrote that in 1952 and how society was back then, and a lot of the things like Like he even was talking, he calls them, what is it called? Seashells, basically like their earbuds. He was writing about earbuds in 1952. I don't know. I'm off on a side tangent there. Oh yeah, here was my point going to delayed gratification is that's what that society is. They can't focus. They can't, there's no depth to them, and suicide rates are extremely high in that society. Like they have, how Tech has a lawn service company. So many people are committing suicide or attempting suicide that they just call up these crews, almost like these plumbers, and they'll come pump out your stomach. Like it's so frequent, it's just like another business. You don't even go to the hospital anymore. And that society is instant gratification. And if you think about our society, like where we were from 1952 to now, we're very much instant gratification. And there's not a lot of patience. There's not a lot of attention. There's very few people that read anymore. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm getting off on a little. I love that book, but it's kind of scary where our society is. So, but if you can develop this delayed gratification and this mindset of building habits and grinding it out over the long term, I think that there's really no limit. And the advantage is because so few people can do that right now, that we have a massive advantage. Most resellers, if they resell at all, it's very sporadic. It's when they feel like it. But if we can be disciplined and create those habits, and delayed gratification. All right, I'm gonna get off that box. Michelle said, Judge Judy puts me to sleep every night. So if I see it during the day, I instantly start dozing off. All right, you gotta take Michelle's remote control during the day. And Nina says, when my motivation tampers off, simply lighting a candle in my workplace boosts my mood. I like that one because there's a strong correlation between scents and emotions as well. What's your go-to scent, Nina? If you want to share, I'm curious.
I get a lot of fruity scents, not like lavender or anything to calm me, more like energizing scents, I guess.
Okay, all right, I like that. Yeah, I like candles too. All right, I guess we can get back to the book and finish this section. So he's talking about a motivational ritual. Oh yeah, that's where we got sidetracked. Athletes usually use similar strategies to get themselves in the mindset to perform. And so when I read this, it's like, well, how can we use that in reselling if we're struggling with motivation, like maybe in Heidi's case or someone, I'm not picking on Heidi, but since you put it out there. So what are some rituals maybe we can create? During my baseball career, I developed a specific ritual of stretching and throwing before each game. And I coach softball, and I know with my softball teams, it was very much like that. The warm-ups, even practice was, of course, it was focused a lot on fundamentals, but there's almost like a ritual. These habits almost become ritualized. And like you'll see people in the major leagues, when they step into the batting box, they've got different, they're crossing themselves and they're kissing their necklace and they're tapping their feet. Like for me, when I played basketball, before a free throw was the same ritual. I dribbled it 3 times, then I put backspin on the ball and I caught it, and then I shot the free throw. So these rituals kind of cue us in to perform. And then I'm thinking, like, is there a ritual we can create? Well, that's what you're doing, Nina, right? Like you're almost like a ritual with a candle. That's almost like a ritual. The whole sequence took about 10 minutes. And I did it the same way every single time. While it physically warmed me up to play, more importantly, it put me in the right mental state. And I think that's what we're talking about, the mental state. I began to associate my pregame ritual with feeling competitive and focused. Even if I wasn't motivated beforehand, by the time I was done with my ritual, I was in game mode. You can adapt this strategy for nearly any purpose. Say you want to feel happier in general. Find something that makes you truly happy, like petting your dog or taking a bubble bath, and then create a short routine that you perform every time before you do the thing you love. Maybe you take 3 deep breaths and smile. 3 deep breaths, smile, pet the dog, repeat. Maybe you could do that with listing. 3 deep breaths, smile, list, photograph.
Ron,
Yeah, Zay.
When he first said that, I thought like my immediate thought was imagine being like I'm getting ready to do my listing, so I'm gonna go take a bubble bath first, and then I'm gonna go do my listing.
Or it might be better that's like your reward. I think Carlin was mentioning that, like, with you, like maybe your workout, like you can't go work out or you can't take your bubble bath until you hit your listing goal.
Not gonna lie, I've got a lot of work done in the bath.
It could be hard to photograph from the bathtub.
Not
But
photos.
hey, Isaiah, you could combine. Here we go, Isaiah. I don't know if this is quite a habit stack or temptation bundling or something, but you could clean your shoes while you're taking your bath. Now, you may not come out too clean, but your shoes will be clean. I don't know. Report back if you implement that.
I realized I
That's
was muted. I was like, yeah, do it in the bath. Let's go.
Oh, that's funny. All right, so we're talking about the right mental state, the deep breathing, the smile, the repeat, like figuring out what that ritual is for each person. I like the candles, like what makes you happy, and then what can you implement that's quick and easy. Like you don't want, like if you take a bubble bath before every set of photos, like you're gonna be working all night. But like what's something that doesn't take much time that you can incorporate. You can adapt this strategy for nearly any purpose. Say you want to, oh, I already read that. Eventually you'll begin to associate this breathe and smile routine with being in a good mood. It becomes a cue that means feeling happy. Once established, you can break it out anytime you need to change your emotional state. Stressed at work? Take 3 deep breaths and smile. Sad about life? 3 deep breaths and smile. Once a habit has been built, the cue can prompt a craving, even if it has little to do with the original situation. I think that's the important part. It's the cue, because eventually that cue prompts the craving. The key to finding and fixing the causes of your bad habits is to reframe the association you have about them. It's not easy, but if you can reprogram your predictions, you can transform a hard habit into an attractive one. And here's the key points from the chapter, and then we'll take it to any thoughts anyone has. The inversion of the second law of behavior change is to make it unattractive. So we're talking about breaking bad habits. Every behavior has a surface level craving and a deeper understanding motive. And I think like that's what Dana was saying, like trying to understand what's that deeper motive beneath that craving. Like with Heidi, like she wants to do something else. So there's something going on. So you need to figure out what's underneath there. What is that underlying motive? Your habits are modern day solution to ancient desires. So we all have these same desires that, people a couple hundred years ago or several, or 1,000 years ago had. It's just our environment is how we cope with them now. The cause of your habits is actually the prediction that precedes them. The prediction leads to a feeling. So understanding like the connection between feelings and habits, I think is important too. Highlight the benefit of avoiding a bad habit to make it seem unattractive. And habits are attractive when we associate them with positive feelings, and unattractive when we associate them with negative feelings. Create a motivation ritual by doing something you enjoy immediately before a difficult habit. All right. Anybody got any on that last section or anything at all in the chapter? Anybody got any thoughts or anything you want to relate to?
Doesn't that kind of go against the wisdom of rewarding yourself after you accomplish something, to do it before you accomplish something?
Well, I don't think he said it's not a reward. It's changing your mindset. Like it's associating that, like that cue, whatever that is to change your mindset. It's almost like a trick to change your mindset. So whatever that habit is that you're about to do doesn't feel unattractive. And then I think the reward is like a different type of thing. I would say the reward, it's almost like a habit stack, right? Like you've got all these habit stacks, and then it's like you have a hard shut off. Like I like to be done at 5 p.m. If I work an extra hour, it's 6, but like 6 at the latest. And then, then I can do whatever. I would say it's not exactly the same.
So how do we make procrastinating unattractive?
Well, so I think figuring out why are we procrastinating? Like, if we're not doing like what are we getting from that? What is the motive, or what is the environment? What is underneath that's causing us? Like, to me, like, once I know for myself, I've been doing 7 days a week, and I list on Saturday, but Sunday I launched from the draft bank, and I've been doing that for about, I don't know, a little bit over a month. And I've been listing 5 days a week for over a year, and probably 99% of the time I hit my listing goal. And at this point, even though I'm not listing nearly as much as Tech or some other people, like, that habit's really strong. Like, I'm at the point, I think there's a cue, there's a craving, and predict, like all these things we talked about. Like, I get annoyed it's weird. Like, people say they hate listing. Like, if I don't list, Monday through Friday for sure, and now sometimes on Saturday, like, I don't feel right. I feel off. And if you think about the predictions, because we know if you list, like, who is it? Somebody in the group posed that if you list, they will come, right? Like, we're predicting that by creating these listings, and with the knowledge we've got from Tech, with good pictures, title structured the right way, the key item specifics for our niche, and pricing. If we price it all right, we can predict that these will sell within a certain amount of time, especially looking at sold data, whether it's Terapeak or Solds. So it's like you I don't know. Gosh, I'm just going off here. Well, so when you procrastinate, what do you think or maybe that's what you need to think about this week. Like, what feelings are you feeling? And I know we don't talk about this in the morning call, but I think with this book, with all the psychology, this is the time to figure it out. Like, what are the emotions? Or like Isaiah was talking about, his environment was creating friction. I think we got to like dig in deeper to try to figure out what's underneath it. There's a reason you're procrastinating. Like, you're getting something from it. Like, what is it? It may not be easy to answer right now, but something to think about, I think. Dana says, end procrastination by making the opposite action attractive. So the opposite of procrastination would be action, right? I guess procrastination is delaying. So
I was about to say anti-crastination.
I know. I was like, what is that? Procrastination. We'd have to break down what's the root word of procrastination. Crastate? I don't know. I'll have to look into that. But we know it's acting now. And how, like, why would we not want to act now? But here's the thing, like Tech's talked about this on the podcast. And here's another habit I started this week. And I don't know if this is too much. Like, I've listened to every one of the podcasts from the very first one. I've gained a lot, but it's almost like a book. Like, these podcasts are like a book. A good book, you want to read it multiple times. So what I'm doing now is I'm listening every single day that I work. I listen to the previous podcast, and what I'm finding is I'm getting little nuggets that maybe I missed the first time, or a point is being reinforced. So that's a current habit that I'm working on, because I think the podcast, like constantly hearing Tech and Chris talk, like, that's just creating, I don't know. It's like creating motivation. It's creating desire to list. It's like understanding, and I don't know. I wouldn't want to procrastinate. I don't know. There's a lot of, let's see, chat. So Michelle says citrus or cucumber is super energizing. Oh, that's a good tip. Citrus or cucumber. So orange, cucumber. I know drinking cucumber water is supposed to be good for you. I don't know what the exact benefits are, but Terry, I'm sorry if I mispronounced this, but Terry says, think of the end result. So that, I think that's the why, right? That's why I was talking about printing that picture of me like a log, a cabin with this great view of the mountains. Like that's my happy place. Like when I'm out hiking in nature, that's where I feel at peace. So for me, that's part of my why. I like what she said. Think of the end result. Dana was talking about doing the opposite. Nina says having an accountability partner. By the way, I don't know if Chris is still here. I noticed the accountability sheet wasn't updated for this week. I need to remind him. I don't know if you're still here, Chris. If you get a chance, maybe you can update it. Nina says having an accountability partner really helps. I know that at the end of the day, it's up to me, but the accountability partner adds the pressure a bit to them. Not only let yourself down, but another. Yeah, I think that's a good one. How do you do that, Nina? Is it like somebody that checks in with you with a text? Do y'all follow
It's
up?
pretty much Isaiah. Isaiah and I, if we're not in this room, he will FaceTime me or whatever, or text me like, where the heck are you at? And, you know, vice versa. So like, that's kind of what we use this room as, kind of a accountability room, and like just to get our step-by-step daily tasks done.
I like that, an accountability room. That's good.
It's Nina telling me that I suck pretty much, you know. Like it's like,
She's
hey,
like,
what are you
no.
doing? Why are you not done yet? She's like, hey.
I know it goes both ways though, because I mean everyone has their days.
Well, Nina, if you catch him trying to take a bubble bath before he doesn't, unless he's cleaning his shoes, tell him no.
Yeah, but we'll do little things like, all right, photos are done, cleaning, because we're in the same niche, so it's really easy because we have to do the same tasks every day. So it's like, hey, cleaning's already done. You know, next I need to do photos. Photos are done. Next I'm doing listings. Listings are done. Now I'm working on the next day. Or shipping's done, and then you go through the rest of those processes I just mentioned. So it's just like little messages throughout the day, like, all right, you know, did you do this? Oh, okay. How'd the work day go for you so far? And we just kind of talk about it.
That's good. See, and I think like for me personally, the 24-hour room is like a double-edged sword. Like I found for me, I tend to get sidetracked.
Yeah.
But I do find it but at the same time, I think it's very informative, and it gives you that sense of like you're not alone. And like, so I struggle. I haven't been in it much lately, but I keep going back and forth.
See, there's two versions of it. There's the silent version of the 24-hour room with like slight chatter that comes up. And in that one, you know, everybody's crushing it. But then
That's a great room.
yeah, sometimes there's another 24-hour room where there's like maybe an hour of talking. And that one might not be the best for productivity.
That one's the struggle bus. And it happens the later at night it is, and the more tired we are, the less working we are, and the more chatty we are.
And if one of our if one of the two group leaders that we have gets on Whatnot and decides to do a stream about his shoes, just expect no productivity at all.
For goodness sakes, yeah.
And we
Then
got to
it's
watch out for
over.
Michelle. No Judge Judy before.
No Judge Judy. I can only watch it right before bed. I go to sleep to it. I put a sleep timer on it.
You ever have dreams about Judge Judy or nightmares?
No, but I hear her voice and it puts me to sleep. That shrill, like old lady voice. Just
Interesting.
I know it's weird.
I like it. Starlight Records saying those podcasts are money. Yeah, I think the podcasts are just amazing. Like the podcast, I listen to the Tuesday call. I usually don't attend those, but I listen to every one of those, and then the podcast. And I'm gonna try that for a while. Just listen to it every day and see what difference it makes. Because I think like one of the takeaways from this chapter, a lot of this is just mindset. So how do we change our environment, or how do we trick things up where we can change our mindset? Because it's just mindset. Tier says 2 a.m. I went to bed at 2:30 on a Tuesday night. Dang. We need to give her some Judge Judy a little bit earlier.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that habit stacking though is kind of goes into this as far as finding the things that you associate to like work. What do you associate to work? Maybe it's the candle, maybe it's a certain sound or music that you play when it's time to work. Maybe it's being in here and this is what cues you to like if I'm going to be in here and my camera's on, I'm working. Yeah, Eric, this is a book call. So I think doing the association is super helpful for a lot of people, and stacking those habit. I guess it's kind of like the habit stacking is the same
I
thing
have
as
certain
association.
music that I put on when I start working or photographing, I mean.
Yeah, it's all the same. We're just ridiculous as humans.
And I noticed from like I listen to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of them are like business, entrepreneurial focused. But like if I notice it's late in the day and I'm struggling to finish, I'm tired, like I'll switch over to music because I know it'll kind of pick me up. So I think a lot of this, like talking to Heidi and Carlin and probably others, is like understanding yourself, your motivations. You know, what are those underlying motives? What what Michelle's saying right there, like what are things you can do to make the habit stacking more attractive? I think we got to try to figure ourselves out to make some of these changes. Yeah, Eric, we just finished talking, going over chapter 10, and we're just kind of recapping what we read. It's about how to make, what's the title? How to make bad habits more attractive, I think. No, how to find and fix the causes of your bad habits.
For me, it's usually like my go-to get my work done thing is sorry, I can't even focus when it's happening. So whenever my timers are on, like it's focus, I'm at my most efficient. Whenever they're paused, I can talk to you guys for forever. But whenever a timer's on, I get this weird anxiety because I know the timer is rolling and I'm not typing. So that means that my my time per listing or time per photo set or whatever is going to be like reduced. It's going to be longer basically. And I don't want that to be. I want to be as fast as I can be. And I have these like mental times that I need to hit. And if I'm talking and not typing, I can't hit those times. So
What do you use for timers?
just the regular iPhone app. But
Okay.
when I was using the Android timer, I just used their regular app as well. But I think Jack isn't here right now, so I can't ask him. But he uses this thing that tracks his timers for him and puts him in like this little spreadsheet or whatever. But I can't think of the name of it. Next time I see him.
On the way, Isaiah, it's like gamification. Like it's like a challenge or a game. Like you want to beat your score, you beat your time. I've done that a little bit. I think that's something I need to do more regularly. Do you do that?
I do it every day, every time.
Every day?
I can't do it without, like, I'm so inefficient without my timers. It's crazy. Even if I'm not talking to you guys, my efficiency is way higher. And I cannot list in a mental sense. It's so hard for me to list without those timers going. If they're not going, it just feels off.
So do you think that those timers help you stay focused versus distracted because you know the time is wrong?
Yeah, I'm like super focused on the process. Like, let's say if I was talking to Nina, right, on the phone, but I wouldn't be able to list while I'm talking to her because the timer isn't going. Like the timer has to be going for me to focus on listening. That's how interconnected they are.
So now that, all right, so that cue and that craving or a habit for you is what we read and what you're saying now. I like that. I need to do that. I need to start doing the timers regularly.
I've been doing it for a year straight now. So like I've been timing myself for a year. And it's just, it's so interconnected.
I'm sure over time, obviously the time is going down, but what's the opposite of exponential? Or is it like a steady linear decrease?
There's a couple of big jumps in there that happen as a result of process changes. So like my cleaning speed is exponentially faster, like in February of this year, one of those 2 months. I think it's January of this year than it was at any point in time last year. I'm like way faster. And the thing is, I wasn't timing that process at first. And once I started timing it, as well as I made those adjustments, it made that process. I went from being able to clean, I would always say, as long as people can clean 6 pairs per hour, that's good. Toggle. I think, no, it's not, was it Toggle? Toggle might be the one that I'm thinking of. I'm not sure though. I remember he said something like that, but it used to be, I used to go like, hey, as long as you can clean 6 pairs per hour, you're doing good, right? For me, I was around like 9 or 10. And then once I started timing the process and I made those changes, it got to the point where now I can do about 19 pairs in an hour, which is a massive change compared to, 9 or 10 an hour, sometimes 6, just being deeply aware of how long every step takes me, it's so much better for me. And when I'm taking photos, I'm like, okay, I want, when I flip back to this timer, I want to see 26 minutes or lower. If it's more than 26 minutes, something was going on. Either I was distracted or I had difficult things that I'm working with. Like if I have a bunch of boots that require different prep work or something like that, then maybe it takes longer. But ideally, when I look at that screen, I want to see 26 minutes. When I'm doing listings, when I look at the screen, I want to see an hour, 16 minutes or lower. When I'm doing cleaning, I want to see 56 minutes or lower every single time. So just having those times in my head, like I'm not always like tracking them in the sense of like, because I used to do this thing where on Instagram I'd post a timer every single day, and I used to do it in the Facebook group as well. And that's kind of how I know where I was, 52 weeks ago. But at this point, it's kind of just like a thing for me. It's just in my phone every time I screenshot it, and I can just see, okay, if I go back to September 3rd of 2021, how fast was I?
Right. Makes me think of like food journals, whether it's MyFitnessPal or whatever you use. Like if what you're conscious of, your attention is directed towards, and then you're probably going to be looking for, then you're going to be like, if it's a food journal, then you're cognizant of what you're eating and what changes you can make. It makes me think like the little bit I've done when I time myself, then I start to think about, well, what can I do? What adjustments can I make to save time?
Mm-hmm.
Michelle?
My question is actually for Isaiah. When you were setting your goals for like how much time, and I know how you set your goals, but like, did you make them so they were reasonably achievable, easily achievable, or really hard to achieve? Do you do the timer goal so you have a reward, or do you do the timer goal so you have something that you're aiming towards?
No, so it's not like how Chris has that challenge where he's like, see how many listings you can do in an hour or 30 minutes and stuff like that. You know how he does that? Mine wasn't that way. It was more documentation rather than I'm racing against this or that, right? It's just when I would start the timers, and a year ago that it took 2 hours and 15 minutes to do 15 listings. And that's what it looked like a year ago. And then I just time it every single time, and I get an idea of how I can be. So like,
are you stop watching it, or are you timing it? Are you doing a countdown or a count up?
It's a stopwatch. There's a stopwatch that goes up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were timing down, because I usually use a timer.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that when I hit the 0, then I'm less motivated if I still have stuff to do.
Yeah, the reason why I don't use a timer is because you can't record the timer, like
right.
you can't see how long per item it took you to list, or how long per item it took you to do photos, because you got that timer going. And then the reason why I don't use it based off of like actual time, like when you're racing against actual time, is way harder, by the way, than it is against the timer, because you can pause the timer, you can't pause actual time. But the reason why I don't do that is because sometimes like we're not working, so I don't think that that's included in my speed, right? Like I'm trying to figure out how fast I am. If I'm talking to you guys right now, I'm not listing. So if I can't go, well, my listing speed was 7 minutes per listing because I spent 15 minutes talking to you guys, unless that was a time in which I needed to be listing and needed to focus on it. But I'm just trying to see how long did it take me when I was actually listing to, hit the listing goal. And by having that stopwatch at the end, I can screenshot it and go, okay, it took 1 hour, 16 minutes. 1 hour, 16 minutes divided by 17. What does that take? How long is that? And then I can just make a calculation from there. Like ideally you'd want to go like, yeah, I want to get my listing speed down to 2 minutes per listing. But what if you're listing at 8 minutes per listing right now? You're not going to just go from 8 minutes to 2 minutes in 2 weeks, So just being able to see yourself go, okay, now I'm at 8 minutes of listening. Oh, now my speed is I've been doing this for a week and it used to say 114 and now I'm starting to see 112 consistently, and then that makes it so that that documentation shows you what you should be expecting from yourself at that point. Like if you do a week of timing yourself, Michelle, and you see that this week you're doing your listings in 2 hours, then your new benchmark is 2 hours. But last week, last month or whatever, when you were timing yourself, it took you 3 hours and 22 minutes, right? But your goal isn't like, let's race to 2 hours. Rather, it's where am I right now? So it's just always being aware of how long each of those steps takes you. And that's why I do it primarily, to figure out where am I at this point.
I like that. I actually like that a lot better than using the timer down.
Yeah.
Because it's less, it's more of a reward. And it's because you're always trying to better yourself rather than getting hit over the head of I didn't make it again. I didn't hit my time again. So whereas the timer is counting down and kind of beating you up if you don't make it. So cool. Thank you.
The other thing too is if you know how long something's going to take you, like say whatever process is your least favorite or whatever, like say photos, if you know it's only going to take you 30 minutes, it's a lot easier to get done because you're like, for me, my brain always assumes it's going to take 3 hours or something, even for like an hour long task or a 30-minute task. So it's like, if I know, okay, my photos are going to be done in half an hour, it's just easier to get it done because it's only going to be half an hour.
And then that's the biggest advantage of it, just like actually knowing how long those things take. It might, like, if it takes 3 hours to do your photos, like, cool, but at least now it takes 3 hours to do your photos compared to I'm doing my photos and I don't know what point I'll be done. I'll just be done eventually. And, we'll see what happens from there. So just like being aware of how long each process takes has been super valuable for me.
Because you can't schedule anything unless you know how long it's going to take you.
Yeah. And as well as I know exactly how long it would take me to do 30 listings or 40 listings, 50 listings. So I know each time how long each process is going to take. So if tech goes, hey, how long is it going to take you to do 34 listings? I can just double all of my times. And then when I'm actually listening, go, all right, so I was expecting it to take double my time. It actually took a little bit longer, maybe because I got fatigued at some point during the process. Maybe the issues were more difficult, so on and so forth. It lets you kind of problem solve a little bit easier. Is it
actually double? Because I know for me, like if I start getting tired, like my speed goes down so much.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It wouldn't double. It'd probably be like, what's like 10, 20% more than double, basically.
2.5, maybe.
Yeah, something like that,
Yeah.
Especially if you're getting more exhausted. But that's kind of why I do it. But that's without those timers, like right now, the timer hasn't been going and I'm on the same part of my listing. I have the euro size clicked and I haven't done anything to it. But once the timer starts, that means, all right, we're working again and I'm back into listening.
But what's interesting? It's like you talk about, like, you know your time, you can analyze it, you can make improvements, but it also seems like it's also like what they were talking about, the ritual. Like you don't feel like you can work unless that timer, like that's the cue in a craving.
There's no listing without the timer. Seriously, like I could list while I'm talking to you guys and not have the timer going, but then I don't know how long it took. So it's just, it completely ruins it for me. So, and if I don't know how long it took, then I don't know how well I did, where I'm going next. It ruins everything. Everything that I'm tracking gets messed up if I do it that way. So I have to have the timer so I can know where I ended.
I like that. And by the way,
I was going to say, didn't you say you were a runner, Isaiah? Or did I just dream that up?
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe that's, we were talking about like, when after Heidi chimed in, just how we all just, are just different, and we might find ways not to procrastinate, just different due to lifestyle. And I wonder if that timer came from maybe you being a runner.
I did a lot of timing when I was running, so yeah, potentially, who knows?
Yeah, and I just linked a Gary Keller's 66-day habit challenge, which is pretty good. Like if you're a visual person, like when I'm starting a new habit, I print that out. I put it on the fridge, and then I check it off, and like that really helps me. And I noticed by the time like where Isaiah is at, once you've done it so many times, you're not going to need a calendar or anything else like that. Habit, the cue, the craving, and all that's going to be ingrained in you, and you're no longer going to need to expend mental energy to create it. And then maybe you can figure out, well, what's another habit I can create? Because I mean, if you think about like our personal lives, and here's what I've been thinking recently, it's like your personal lives obviously bleed into your business. So if you're trying to perform at a high level in your business, what are some things maybe you can do in your, like, this is why I'm asking myself, what are some things I can do in my personal life, whether it's food, diet, exercise, that'll give me more energy. So maybe I don't get as tired and I can be more productive. It's like everything kind of feeds into it. And I'm just curious, like if anybody's starting habits, like I encourage you to like maybe share like what you're doing and how it's going. Hearing like Isaiah's timer, I think it's very beneficial to hear what's working for other people, and maybe we should try some of these things and see how they work. And like what Lena's saying, obviously knowing how you operate and what your motivations are and all those feelings and stuff we were talking about earlier is going to be important. What maybe works for you may not work for someone else. All right. Anybody got any other thoughts on this chapter tonight? All right. It looks like we finished the second law tonight. So next week we start the third law, which is make it easy. We'll be doing chapter 11, walk slowly but never backwards. So that's what we'll be covering. All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming out. I enjoyed tonight's discussion. Try to figure these things out, like what's causing procrastination, what makes me not want to list. Think about the emotions, the motives, the environment, all these things. I think that's the key. It's one thing to read these books, but like to try to really implement them and how can they make our lives better is the key. All right. Well, thanks everyone. We'll catch you on the next call. Everybody have a good